Hello, welcome to PH Maths. The number in focus on root 2. Root 2 is roughly 1.414, the first number ever proven to be irrational, and the diagonal of every unit square. By the end of this video, you'll know how root 2 powers the 45-degree angle, where it hides inside larger surds like root 8 and root 50, and why A paper sizes are the shape they are. Quick identity check. Root 2 is positive. Root 2 is irrational. Its decimal goes on forever without repeating. Root 2 is algebraic, which is a weaker statement than transcendental. Algebraic means it solves a polynomial with integer coefficients, specifically x squared equals 2. And root 2 is approximately 1.41421, the first proven irrational in history. Multiples of root 2. Root 2, 2 root 2, 3 root 2, 4 root 2, 5 root 2. Surds keep their radical when multiplied by a rational. So k times root 2 equals k root 2. You don't expand it, you don't decimalize it. The point of working with surds is to keep exact answers exact. Convert to a decimal only at the very last moment and only if the question asks for one. Powers of root 2. Root 2 to the 0 is 1. Root 2 to the 1 is root 2. Root 2 squared equals 2. Clean integer. Root 2 cubed equals 2 root 2. Root 2 to the 4th equals 4. Root 2 to the 5th equals 4 root 2. The pattern, even powers are integers powers of 2. Odd powers are an integer power of 2 with a root 2 on the side. That rhythm holds for any surd. The diagonal of every square. Take any square with side length 1. Pythagoras gives you 1 squared plus 1 squared equals 2. So the diagonal is root 2. Every square of any size has the same ratio. Diagonal equals side times root 2. And here's a fun real-world one. A paper sizes use a height to width ratio of root 2. That's why you can halve any A paper and the smaller page has the same proportions. Key relationships. Root 2 squared equals 2. Root 2 is roughly 1.41421. 1 over root 2 equals root 2 over 2. That's the rationalized form. Sine of 45 degrees equals cosine of 45 degrees, which equals root 2 over 2. And the surd simplifications, root 8 equals 2 root 2, root 50 equals 5 root 2, root 18 equals 3 root 2. All worth memorizing. Where root 2 shows up in your exams, surds, simplifying root 8, root 18, root 50, root 32. Rationalizing denominators, 1 over root 2 becomes root 2 over 2. Exact trig values, sine 45 equals cosine 45 equals root 2 over 2. Pythagoras on a 1 by 1 right triangle gives you a root 2 answer. And A paper sizes use the 1 to root 2 ratio. Where root 2 hides, anywhere you see root 8, root 18, root 32, root 50, that's a hidden root 2. Every 45-degree trig calculation. The diagonal of any square of any size. And any time a Pythagoras question gives you legs that are equal, the answer is going to involve a root 2. Spot the leg equal leg pattern and save the working. Right, if any of this is going to stick beyond this video, drop into phmaths.com. You'll find a free 4-week GCSE Higher revision planner ready to download, plus the mastery workbooks, one for every higher topic, every answer fully worked, every common slip flagged. Simple explanations, serious results. See you next video.